Hello, Team Short-Term Rental Secrets. This is Richard, founder and Airbnb superhost. On this week's question and answer session, we're going to be answering questions from viewers just like you. And just as a reminder, if you have a question that you'd like to see answered, go ahead and leave a comment below. Let's get right into it. Okay, here's a slightly long-winded question, and I've read it. I'm going to just summarize it. Basically, somebody's that a short-term rental host has somebody who's staying for 20 nights. They've had a family situation, an emergency, and they want to cancel in the middle. And the question here is, what should she do? And I think that the first thing to recognize is that each one of these situations is personal. It's between you and that other person. I think ultimately Airbnb will get involved if you need them to. But first I would, show empathy and try and be understanding and ask what that family situation is. If it's just a matter of I'm homesick and I want to get home, then that's one thing. If it's my son is in the hospital or my house roof caved in or something like that, a little bit of empathy goes a long way. And in that particular case, you might be able to negotiate between and amongst you. And I always try and get the guest to come back, right? I try not to issue refunds. What I try to do is give somebody the same amount of money in terms of credit and say, listen, you have 12 nights left. Why don't you come back in the summer, or a year from now, whenever it is. And if they don't use it, you keep all the money and yet you have got goodwill, right? Like you gave them a really good viable option. If it really is a family emergency, the guest is likely going to reach out to Airbnb and seek full refund. And my gut tells me, knowing how Airbnb values and prioritizes the guest and the guest experience, they'll likely give it to them. And I think that that's reasonable in certain circumstances. In other words, again, if it's a real family emergency, somebody's sick, something drastic has happened, Airbnb is going to give them the money back rightfully. It gets a little vague in the middle, like what's an emergency, and that's where I sort of get the sense that Airbnb used to be with the hosts when they were trying to get more hosts on board, and now that they have enough hosts in every single city and every single part of the world, now they're really prioritizing the guest, and that's where it gets a little bit tricky. But I think a bigger question is, why are you accepting a 20-day rental, right? That's not exactly short-term. I understand the security and the safety and so on. I hope you didn't discount it. You've got other videos where I talk about not giving a weekly discount or a monthly discount. And my bigger question about this is, is 20 days something that really makes a lot of sense? If it's your slow season, yes. Did it come back and bite you maybe now? Yeah, maybe you only rented it for 10 days. I try and keep all of my stuff to 7 days or less. In extenuating circumstances, I'll go to 14 or even 21, but that's the exception. I rarely do it. I'm in the short-term business, and I think you should be too. You will make more money with less headaches and avoid stuff like this. Richard, I've been getting a lot of value from your channel. Keep up the great work. Can I ask you which standing desk you use? It's a great question. I just moved to a standing desk when I moved into the studio, and I love it. I'm going to go ahead and include the link below, but much more importantly than the desk itself, which I highly recommend, is that you get yourself one of these mats. Charles, can you film this down here? This is really critical. When you're standing on hardwood floors, the little bit of bounce and cushion makes it so I can stand much longer. It helps my back. I love the standing desk for my core and stuff. Highly recommend it. Check it out. Okay, great episode. Love that you're putting up so many episodes a week. I have a question, and now I'm going to summarize it. Basically, these people bought a Airbnb home. The people that were living there before had a successful Airbnb down in the basement. That's one of the reasons they bought this home, and they want to go ahead and start Airbnb-ing it. But they have 2 Siamese cats. They say they can be loud at times, and they also have a baby. So their question is, how do they Airbnb in the basement suite and also make sure that people are okay with the fact that there's Siamese cats that can be loud and a baby upstairs? And the first thing I would say is you have to make sure that you disclose it. If you get the right people there, it's not going to be an issue, but don't minimize it, don't hide it, don't overlook it. I think you're doing a great thing just by asking the question. Means that you're cognizant that this is cool for some people and not cool for others. So the way that I would do it is I would put in some sort of qualifications like great place for cat lovers. People that love cats and love babies is a great place for you. If there's no interaction and it's not clear from your question here, I can't tell. Like if literally it's upstairs and they're downstairs and they'll never see the cats or the baby and you're just worried about hearing them, then I would try and quantify it a little bit like, just so you know, there's 2 cats upstairs that can be loud at times and a baby. However, I can't hear it downstairs and neither have our prior guests or whatever. Now, if it turns out that you can hear it, then I think you have a bigger issue. And I guess the question is, how much can you hear? Maybe try and record it, maybe ask your friends to be down there, maybe get some feedback from friends and family, like I was down there and this is what I heard, and then you'll have to reassess. But the main thing is, and I say this time and time again, whatever your problem is, your liability, your concern, Be very forthright, be very clear about it, bring it to people's attention so that there's no like mistakes. And then if you can turn it into a positive, like great for cat lovers, then it's even better, because now all of a sudden you have people that are like-minded coming to stay with you, and the more people like you and like your place and think like you, the more they're going to give you 5-star reviews, which after all is what we're all shooting for. My city charges a hotel occupancy tax and I'm supposed to pay it directly to the city. What proper way to collect these fees and also pass these fees on to the guest? Please help. I'm so confused about how to handle this. Look, it is confusing and it's really important that you do this right. You don't want to mess with any fees or taxes or anything like that. Again, I want everyone to think of ourselves as like running a business, and it has to be repeatable and sustainable. So you have to create a methodology and a process that you charge the guest properly, and also then pass it on to the city or whatever the department is. So let me just give you what I do. In the case of Airbnb, they don't allow me to actually charge the tax and break it out. So what I have to do is manually calculate it. So by way of example, if I charge $100 per night and the tax is 5%, I'll go ahead and show the person booking $105. That's the $100 nightly rate plus the 5% tax. That equals $105. And I just know in my own head that that $5 I'm going to pay forward. So it's a liability that I owe to the city or the state or the hotel occupancy tax. And then what I do is I create a system. Again, I use a virtual assistant where we have on the calendar when it's due. I've trained her on how to go to the website and fill in all the forms. I have her coordinate with my bookkeeper to make sure that her math matches his math. And once the two of them have signed off on it, they notify me, and then she goes ahead and does the actual filing. If you don't have that system in place, try and replicate it. But instead of using a virtual assistant and a bookkeeper, use yourself. But think about a system and a process that's sustainable and repeatable. HomeAway makes it a little bit easier because they allow you to charge a tax and then they break it out for the guest that way, and that makes the guest experience easier and life as a host a little bit easier too, but you still have to go ahead and file it and keep on top of the calendar and all the paperwork. So I hope that's helpful. I hope you found these questions and answers helpful. As always, if you have a question, please go ahead and leave your question below in the comments and we'll go ahead and answer them. And now I have a personal favor. We are really thrilled at how fast our audience is growing, both on our Facebook group. If you haven't joined, and most importantly, since you're watching this here on YouTube, if you haven't subscribed, I have a personal goal. I really want to reach 5,000 subscribers before our anniversary, which is at some point in November. If I can go from 0 to 5,000 in the course of 1 year, I'll feel like I've succeeded and helped a lot of people. So if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Thanks so very much. Have a great day and happy hosting.